Hey everyone, and welcome back to the Bussey Banter. I'm your host, Jacob Bussey, and I'm joined alongside two very special guests today. One you may remember, one you may not have ever seen. Josh Pulis, welcome back to the Bussey Banter, and Breyden Molnar, big Leaf and Jays guys. You can see the little flex there in the back with all those awesome pictures. It's great to have you guys here. As I stated in my last video, in the Leafs 5-1 win over the Canucks, we're going to talk about the last four, including this playoff series. So this will be the fifth playoff series in the past decade the Leafs have made it. So I'm going to just kind of throw it over to you guys. Josh, what is so different about this team compared to maybe last year's team?
Well, first off, thank you again for having me on the Bussy Banter. It's always a good time. But to start off with your question, the Toronto Maple Leafs have had, I'm not going to say a whirlwind type of year, but there's been some ups and downs, and it goes in so many aspects of the game, from the start of the pickups in the off season, to the goaltending situation, to the coaching's been fine, but just players improvements, players declines. But to to sum up the Maple Leafs in one word, I'm going to say poised. I think that's just how they've been the whole year, and it really proves from past years that they're gradually making their way. They're gradually making their way up to the level they want to be. As I said, pickups. Joe Thornton, massive pickup. Older but massive pickup. Wayne Simmons, great pickup. Had a little bit of an injury struggle, came back and excelling. And then if you want to talk and pinpoint some players, Austin Matthews having a career season. John Tavares still putting up numbers. William Nylander, Zach Hyman on improving. But just to see how they've really come as one, and the camaraderie's there, the just everything about this team seems on the right track.
This team certainly has seemed to got it together. Like you said, Kyle Dubas went out and you've got some very important acquisitions. Brayden, in your opinion, which acquisition was the most important to help this Leaf team to where they are right now?
You know what? I have to say the most important. No, I'm gonna say Joe Thornton. That may not be a popular opinion. I know, but some people have been complaining about his play lately. I mean, the past 4 or 5 games he's been outstanding for his age, and I say the leadership because he's taking people under his wing, right? Austin Matthews, Mitch Marner, just like how kind of Patrick Marleau did as well. But he's helping them grow and understand the game and what it takes to play at this time of the year. And I mean, other players have done that as well. Wayne Simmons, obviously, just getting Nick Foligno as well. But I'd say Joe Thornton is because, yeah, like I said, the leadership and just all the experience he brings, and not just those guys as well, just all the young guys. You see him now on a line with Brooks and Spezza on the fourth line, and yeah, just people he plays with. It's just you just see they feed off that leadership.
I think I'm going to agree with you in a sense that Joe Thornton was very important and very crucial for the leadership. I'm actually going to say TJ Brody on this one because the defensive hole that the Leafs have been known for in their struggles, and this was just the guy that you watch 2-on-1 rushes, and he'll be back there and he'll swing his stick in whack directions, and you'll make the play. And his overall defensive play impresses me. This is up to the table for any of you guys. Which player on the Leaf, out of the Leaf young guys, has really stepped up to the plate?
Well, if I think it's an obvious answer here. I think Mitch Marner is still improving. I can't believe that at a guy like still so young in the league, and the way he's stepped up and the way he's just led the team over the past couple of years. And his playmaking ability is elite. I don't think I've ever seen in the past couple of years. We'll talk about it later in the show. Like the players the Maple Leafs had, and they've never really had a player like Mitch Marner playmaking wise. If you really think of it, leading the team in assists, leading the team in points up to this stage in the game, and it's incredible. And you know what? He adds not just playmaking; he scores goals. He just scored his 100th goal a couple of games ago, and that just proves that he's so versatile. But I can go on and on about Marner, Matthews, but if there's one player specific, I'm happy to see what Marner's done.
Brayden, your thoughts?
Well, it's hard to argue Marner. I mean, Matthews as well, but young guys, I'd have to go with, I mean, Rasmus Sandin. I know he hasn't played a lot, but lately, like the time he's been in, he's been outstanding in my opinion. And also just to see what he could do in the future as well. He's just going to grow as a player, continue to grow. And I think just on the back end there, he shows the patience he has. He doesn't seem intimidated. He's not afraid to throw the body as well as we've seen. Obviously the hit on Wheeler there, the behind hit, and he can also take a hit as well if he has to. And he doesn't seem that he seems like scared, right? He seems like he's been there before, right? And again, I think it brings back to leadership. It's not like a team full of young guys anymore, so he doesn't have to be like, oh, I have to be perfect, right? Like he knows that he can make a mistake here and there, and that like it's not the end of the world. You know what I mean? So,
Yep.
I mean, he's still young, he's still growing, but like yeah, he's really impressed. Sorry. So yeah, he's my answer.
I mean, I'm gonna agree with you. I've watched the way he's been playing. One of the first games he comes in, he makes that huge hit on Wheeler, the captain of the Jets, and that sparked obviously the fuel in the Jets there. But yeah, he's been absolutely outstanding. Maybe Brooks. Brooks has looked absolutely great too. Got another goal in the Vancouver win. Nice tip from the high slot. I mean, I think this team has got everything on all cylinders. It's firing off all cylinders right now. And once Frederick Anderson comes back, a healthy Frederick Anderson is kind of a scary Frederick Anderson. So hoping that he does that. So let's talk about the last 5 years. So the first time the Leafs made the playoffs in over a decade or just under a decade was 2013 with a 26-17-5 record. Obviously, 2013 was a weird year. It was kind of a lockout year. And then I don't have to remind Leaf fans, Game 7 in May. They went 4-1. You look at that team, and then fast forward another 8 years and to 2018, 49, 26, and 7, a franchise high. Like it just shows the amount of development that happened in between there. My question to you guys is, as much as this hurts to talk about, did 2013 need to happen in order to get where we are right now?
I mean, I've been saying that recently, the past few years, like obviously 2013 hurts, but would we have gone through this rebuild and have these players that we have now if that didn't happen? Like, would we have ended up getting Babcock, Lamoriello? Would we have ended up drafting Matthews years later, right? Marner, Nylander. And I mean, looking back now, in my opinion, I think it's kind of blessing in disguise, if that makes sense, right? Like, yeah, it was painful at the time, but I really don't think we would have really full on rebuilt a couple years after that if that didn't happen.
Well, yeah, you look at 2014, 38, 36, and 8, then 2015, 30, 48, 44, and 8, and then in 2016, 29, 42, and 11, the league worst. So, yeah, you're right. I think after that rebuild, the Leafs kind of realized that it wasn't going to happen for a few years, and Leaf fans had to suffer through those 3 years, and it wasn't fun suffering through those 2 years. But the fact that the Leafs are where they are now, right now, they're at a 33-13-5 record. Obviously, in a 56-game season, I would assume you maybe double. It's hard to say what they would have had because the divisions are completely messed up and there's a completely different atmosphere. But 33-13-5, the only team in the North Division to clinch. Who do you think they play in the first round? And is there a team that you don't want them to play in the first round? Josh, I'll hand it over to you.
Well, it's pretty evident that it's most likely going to be the Montreal Canadiens. But it's all destined. We haven't seen, well, in my lifetime, in our lifetime, we haven't seen a playoff series against the Canadiens, and it's just going to be a wild ride. And then to answer your second question, not necessarily in the first round, but in the playoffs in general, you don't really want to play anybody. But if there's one team that really stands out, and I was talking to Breyden about this a couple of weeks ago. The Winnipeg Jets are a team that honestly scares me as a fan that watches the Maple Leafs and watches North Division games, watches teams all around the league. I think the Winnipeg Jets stand out there as a team that's really underrated with the players that they have offensively, with the guys Mark Scheifele, Blake Wheeler, Ehlers that's out, but he's coming back. We'll see if he comes back. Luke Dubois they added, then Hellebuck in net. It's just a team that under the radar, we don't know if they're even going to get past the Edmonton Oilers. But at the same time, if it gets to the point where the Maple Leafs are eventually going to have to play them, they're a team that kind of worries me in a sense that even though they might have these like 2-3 game stints where they don't look good. They lose to Ottawa. They lose to the Canadians. They're a team that could just stand out there and give the Leafs a hard time as they have the whole season.
Yeah, and the Jets kind of look like more of a complete team than Edmonton. However, Edmonton's still ahead of them in the standings. Jets on a 6-game losing skid right now. So that's definitely not the kind of feel you want to go into the playoffs. You don't want to be in there. Like the Leafs are going to go in there on a high note. The Jets are going to just be like, yeah, we did well in the early season. We can afford a 6-game losing skid. And obviously, you don't want that mentality. Paul Maurice has definitely said multiple times that it's not the right headspace. The Leafs versus the Jets this season head to head are 6-3. So they have the Leafs have a winning record against every team. The Leafs are 6-1 against Edmonton, 5-2 against Montreal. They play the next 3 games against the Canadiens. So I'm thinking like the Leafs could be spoils to the Canadiens, and the Flames could sneakily get themselves in that 4th spot. Breyden, would you rather play Montreal or the Flames in the first round?
Oh, I've been saying this for the past month and a half. I want to see the Leafs and a Montreal first round matchup. That would just be cool for any Leaf fan and for hockey fans in general. I mean, when you think Leafs Montreal first round matchup, you think just the history, the rivalry, right? You want to see that, and you haven't seen that for years and years, since the 70s, right? So I think that'd be an exciting matchup for any fan, no matter where Montreal is in the standings, or no matter where the Leafs is. It's just that history, right? And even though Montreal in a normal season wouldn't be near the playoffs, I mean, that intensity is going to rise, right? You know, like their players are going to bring it, ours are going to bring it, and now the Leafs are built for that playoff hockey, in my opinion. They got that physicalness. Simmons leading the way up front there. Yeah, I don't think it would be the same feeling with a Calgary Flames matchup. If I don't know if you guys would agree with that, just because I mean, it'd still be physical. I think it'd still be an exciting series, but it's not Leafs Montreal.
No, in
Yeah,
the playoffs, we've never heard that before.
It's definitely not the
Exactly.
same atmosphere. It would help a lot more if fans were allowed, but who knows what's going to happen there. Let's shift to more of a player perspective. We talked about probably the Rocket Richard winner this year. Austin Matthews would be the first Maple Leaf to do so. He's never had a season below 60 points. He's never had a season. His first season was 69 and 63, 73, and last year he had 80, almost had a 50 goal season before it got canceled. And then he has 62 already this season. So he's never had a season without 30 goals, which is just incredible to think about. Is he really going to be the player the Leafs rely on the most this season, this playoffs?
Guaranteed. We know a couple of years when, and this was in the media, this was publicized everywhere. If Matthews isn't on his game, the Leafs aren't on their game, and this was talked about through everywhere. He was always in the spotlight, and he was actually getting bashed. I really felt bad for him if he didn't score in the playoffs a couple of years ago against Boston. It's just he was getting that type of response. It's like, why isn't Matthews scoring? Why isn't he doing that? But now I think the Maple Leafs are at a point where they don't really need to rely on Matthews to get everything done, because it's a totally different team, right? They're more well-rounded. But at the same time, they need their top goal scorer and easily the best goal scorer in the league to step up, right? And against Columbus, he was okay, right? He was still got the job done, but now he's at a point where he's evolved. He's just a better player, a better goal scorer, and in the North Division, he's taken advantage of it, right? So to close that, Matthews, Maple Leafs, they're a combination that just has to go together.
Brayden?
Yeah, it's hard to argue with any of that. I mean, they're obviously going to need Austin Matthews going into the playoffs at the top of his game, but I agree with Josh as well that even if he's not at the top of his game, I mean, they still have other pieces that can fill in that role, right? Obviously, you're not going to score as many goals as he does. No one does. I mean, he's the best in the league at doing that. But you still have John Tavares, Mitch Marner, William Nylander. You added Nick Foligno. Like, I could just go on and on and on, right? And yeah, like even if he's not at the top of his game, he's still effective now because he's not just a goal scorer. He's turned into a 200-foot player, right? He's great in the defensive zone. He's still going to get better, in my opinion. Neutral zone. He's starting to not throw the ball. He's not a physical player, but he's does it more than he did a few years ago, right? You see him get in there, like when they few games ago when they shoved Tavares after the whistle there, he gets in there. And even I noticed last year against Columbus, he started throwing his body a little bit. And it's great to see that, right? Like he's not just the goal scorer everyone thinks, and he can be more than that.
Yeah, he's definitely worked on his two-way game 100%. Sure. This is a crazy stat for you. In 329 career games, he's got 347 points. So he's got more points than games played in the NHL compared to Pierre-Luc Dubois and Patrick Laine, who haven't even been on their original team since. I think this team, even if Matthews doesn't play well, they have four lines. And our third line with Kerfoot, Mikheyev, and Simmons could be a first line on another team, which is kind of crazy to think about. The fact that the Leafs have been so desperate for talent. This is the year the Leafs have to take that extra step, or there's going to be big changes made this offseason, especially with the cap not increasing. I'm going to disagree with both of you. I think when Frederik Andersen returns, he's going to have the biggest season of his career. There's no doubt there because his leash will be super short, and Sheldon Keefe will be like, okay, if he has one bad game, I can see him getting pulled or just not starting the next game. Because we look at Jack Campbell, his record is incredible this season. He's got so many wins, and he's been such a good reason for the Leafs win streak. Seems to have gotten his confidence back after a shaky 3 or 4 games in the middle there. But I think it's going to be Frederik Andersen. He's been on the ice. He's been able to practice. He's going to come back. They're going to put Hyman on the LTIR so that way Frederik Andersen's cap money doesn't, oversee the cap, and then they'll bring Hyman back for the playoffs because the cap doesn't count for the playoffs for some stupid reason. But say the Leafs do come out of the North. That means you got to deal with either Pittsburgh, Washington, New Islanders, Boston, Hurricanes, Panthers, Lightning, Predators, or an Avalanche, Knights, Wild, or Blues. Like, a lot of people will criticize Toronto because they'll say you haven't played a team like this. You haven't played a Colorado. You haven't played a Carolina. You're right, we haven't, but they haven't played a Toronto. Mm-hmm. And I think that's a big question to you guys is if the Leafs do come out of the North, they'll have to play someone from the East, which will be either Pittsburgh, Washington, or New York, Boston. Mm-hmm. Who, in your opinion, should the Leafs be concerned about most in the next kind of round if they make it there?
You know what? The East Division, it's been on and off. No one really expected the Penguins or Washington to be at the top of the division. Most people probably had Boston, the Flyers. They were up there as well in a lot of mock standings, right?
Yeah, well, we saw what happened with the Flyers this season.
Yeah, it's very, very unpredictable how it goes. But if there's one team, and Maple Leaf fans know this, and you guys probably know what I'm going to say. Even though they're fourth in that division, they still have to watch out for the Boston Bruins. And the Boston Bruins always find a way. We've talked about this in a couple podcasts before, that they always find a way, right? Even though their team doesn't look as good, and they got the Rangers trailing up their alley. They're always a team that could shock one. Right. So I'm not really fully on Pittsburgh or on Washington. I know they're great teams, but it's so unpredictable that any of them can make it. And the Maple Leafs just have to worry about, they're not really looking at that. They're focused on the North Division first, and then they're going to be like, it's go time. And those other teams are good. The Maple Leafs understand that.
So the Rangers only have 4 more games. They have to win every single game, and Boston has to lose every single game for them to switch position. So it's basically Boston's going to be certified at this point. Speaking of Boston, Breyden, they've played Boston 3 times in the past decade. Is this the year, if they do have to play them, where they're able to overcome that kind of Boston curse?
If they do have to play them, I think it is the year. I mean, just look at this team. It's way better, way different from years past. Just look at the depth. Would you rather? I mean, there's nothing towards Kasperi Kapanen and Andreas Johnsson. They're great players, but who would you rather have in the bottom 6, them or Wayne Simmons, Joe Thornton, and those types of players, right? Like, I just want that leadership. I want that more physicalness as well, right? And I think they're more built depth-wise up front and on the back end. I mean, we talked about TJ Brody earlier in the show. I think Zach Bogosian, if he can come back healthy as well for the playoffs, or even by the time if they did have to play Boston, I think he's been great in that third line role. and the emergence of, we said, Rasmus Sandin as well. And I think Austin Matthews, Mitch Marner are just getting better. Jack Campbell's had a great season. If Frederick Anderson can come back healthy and play well, that's two great goalies that you can rely on no matter what. And you know what? I think they can't lose them again, right? It's like, if they did have to play them, I just really can't see them losing again. And I think if they do get that far, no matter who they play, I think it's their year this year. They're going to the final. And sorry, go ahead, Josh.
No, I was gonna say finish up, and then I'm gonna add to just what you just said.
Okay. And yeah, I just think they have a lot of veteran guys too that are determined. Like, you see Joe Thornton, he's probably gonna retire at the end of the year. He's going through a wall. Like, he doesn't care if he has to be physical. It doesn't matter what he has to do. Like, he wants that cup, right? And there's so many people that haven't won a cup. I mean, and Wayne Simmons from Toronto, right, around the area. They got so many guys like that as well. And I think it's just everything is lining up to be their year.
And yeah, Brayden, you said it perfectly. And you guys are probably going to agree with this. In the past couple of playoff appearances against the Bruins, the Maple Leafs have really not really toyed around, but they weren't the physical team. And that was where the team got the bash to go. They have to add more physicality. They have to add more grit to the team. And I think they exactly got that now, even with the newest adding Foligno, right? But having guys like Thornton, Bogosian, Simmons, just the list goes on of who actually adds the grit to the team. And if they were to play the Bruins or anybody in that division, the Penguins are a physical team, Capitals are a physical team. Even the Islanders have that grit to them. So the Maple Leafs could actually match. They're at a point now where they can actually match or actually exceed another team's physicality.
And you could argue too that, like, even though they lost to Boston, they went to Game 7 each and every time, right? If this team is deeper than those teams as well, and I think it may not even get to a Game 7 at that point.
Yeah, it's a perfect transition to talk about the different playoff series, kind of like to finish up the show. We'll talk about these. 2013, Leafs were down 3-1 in the series. They came back to make it a Game 7, and then they lost in that very heartbreaking third period. 2016, they make it for the first time in however long, Matthews' first year, and they lose to the Capitals in Game 6. However, 4 of those games went to overtime, so that series could have shifted like at all. Do you guys know in 2017? Oh, no, it was 2017. Yeah, 2016 they played Capitals. Yeah, they did.
2016, right? 2017 was the Capitals.
Yes. Okay. So 2017, 2018, it was our good old friend, the Boston Bruins. Once again, Leafs were down 3-1, made it Game 7, and it was a blowout 7-4 in the final game. And the Leafs again lose. 2019 was a different case. The Leafs were up 2 times in that series. They were up 2-1 and they were up 3-2 with home ice advantage in that Game 6. They couldn't get it done. Boston takes it to Game 7, but they showed promise. And then 2020 happened. And we were set to play Boston once again. It was going to be the trifecta. And we play Columbus instead in this weird situation bubble playoffs. I thought that was the most disappointing playoff series, despite that Game 4. It was like a Game 6 kind of in a normal playoff, where they scored 3 goals in 5 minutes, and then they lost in Game 5. And then it's this year. So out of all of these playoff series that I just gone over, 5 technically, no, 4 have gone to 2013. Okay, so 3 of them have gone to 7 games, and last year's qualifying was like a 4th. Are the Leafs going to take any of these the distance, or are they going to clean it up and get it done before 7 games?
That's a good question. It really is.
I think, in my opinion, the first round, I don't think it should go the distance. I think it'll be wrapped up in about 5 games. I'm going to say 5. I don't want to say sweep. I mean, it's hard to sweep anyone, no matter what team you are, and no matter how good you are either, no matter who you're playing. So I'm not going to say it's safe. I'd say 5 games. Then once we get to that second round, I mean, I can honestly see a Leafs Winnipeg second round matchup, and I think that would have the chance to go the distance if Winnipeg's on top of their game. or at least go 6. I can't see it being a sweep on any side, or I can't see it being going 5. I think that would be a harder series. But I mean, once we get into the Eastern Conference Final and Cup Final, I mean, like I said, Leafs haven't played any of those teams, and none of those teams have played the Leafs either, right? So it's kind of hard to say how those matchups would go. I think we have a better chance of going the distance once we get later into the playoffs.
So you think the longer we go into the playoffs, the better we get?
No, I think like the longer into the playoffs we go, I think there's a better chance of this series going 7 games.
Gotcha.
Than playing a Canadian team.
Josh, your opinions on the Leafs taking it all the way or not taking it all the way this year?
They have I think this is one of their greatest chances to go the distance in the playoffs, right? Individual series. Again, they're the Toronto Maple Leafs in the playoffs. We totally don't know if it's going to be 4 or 5 games. It's most likely going to go 7. I just the way it goes. But they totally have a chance. They have a real chance to race for that Stanley Cup. They're just as good as all the other elite teams, right? If not better.
Well,
We
they've been
don't
in
know.
first in their division for the longest, over 100 days now.
Yeah. And I know people say, hey, it's the North Division. The North Division has put up some fight this year, and people are actually it's shadowing under, like it's actually one of the best divisions, but people really don't understand that.
Because there's teams like Ottawa and Vancouver, Calgary, who's kind of been subpar to say this season. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, but the Maple Leafs do have a chance, and I think whatever team they play or whatever series they have, they're going to be close. I don't know if the Maple Leafs will walk all over a team. We totally don't know.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, I'm just optimistic of the fact that going into the playoffs for another year.
At the end of the day, you just got to make the playoffs in this situation, and the Leafs basically since day one were guaranteed. We all know on paper they have the best team in the North. My final question for you guys: is this the year that the Stanley Cup is blue and white and not for Tampa but for Toronto?
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. I'm going with my word. I'm going with my gut, and I think it is. I mean, like I said, we got all the pieces. I mean, if this team doesn't win it, who's going to win it, right? I mean, you got so many guys that are determined to win it, guys that haven't won it, guys that are from the Toronto area, guys that want to prove people wrong. Mitch Marner, Austin Matthews, William Nylander, John Tavares. I mean, they all want to prove the Toronto media wrong, saying these guys can't do it. These guys need to be split up, can't happen. Can't get a cup with these contracts. And then obviously Freddie Anderson coming back too, healthy. I'm sure he's got a chip on his shoulder. He's got unfinished business. I mean, he's been the guy for 4 years, right? And now all of a sudden people's writing him off. So I mean, I think he's going to be determined. And yeah, I just think everything's lining up for it to be the year.
It's hard to say yes in these situations. It's hard to say yes and pinpoint. Yeah, yes, indeed, because living in Toronto, we've heard many Maple Leaf fans say, "This is our year. This is the year they win the cup." And I'm going to be like a optimistic fan here, saying I really hope that it does happen. Breyden listed off awesome points there, and really like well constructed points, meaning that they have it. They have what it takes. It's just we have to see: are they determined? Are they resilient? And are they ready for the challenge? So I'm not giving you a definitive answer. All I'm going to say is it looks good.
What I'll say on this is if any Leaf team in the past 20, 30 years is going to do it, it's going to be this one. And they do have all the pieces. They just got to put this puzzle together. And all it takes, and it's really, really sad to see, but all it takes is one injury, and there goes their playoff hopes. If Matthews gets hurt, then if guys can't step up, that's going to be it. If Freddie gets hurt and Campbell doesn't play great, then it's not going to look good. So on paper, this Stanley Cup should be in Toronto. And if it does, I may be hammered for 2 months straight. I may be hammered if they don't make it out of the first round for 2 months straight for a different reason. Kind of to wrap up, guys, I really have appreciated you on this and helping, my YouTube channel kind of get big. Is there anything, if the Leafs win this year, say the Leafs win the Stanley Cup, would you go back to 2013 and tell yourself that this loss was important to Boston?
I would
Josh, you can
say
go first.
I would say so. I would just knowing, honestly, Jake, it goes before that series. It
Yeah.
goes decades long,
Yeah.
right? It's been a drought that it's like you can't really imagine this. You can't
Like
imagine a team.
the last time they won, there was no color TV, which is ridiculous.
There was a lot in that day that wasn't around in today's current times, but it goes from that series, from all those tough times from before then up to now. That should be their motivation. That should be their determination to do it and win it.
Breyden, any final thoughts on what would you go back and tell your 2013 self about that series loss?
Yeah, I'd say it had to happen. It was worth it, but it'll be well worth it in about 12 years time, 11 years time, whatever the math is there. But yeah, definitely, because like I said earlier in the show, I don't think we get those players if that doesn't happen. We don't do a full on rebuild that fast. That
We
like
don't
only a couple years later, right?
We don't get rid of those guys. Yeah.
Yeah, and also, I mean, people like to bash on Babcock too, but I mean, without Babcock, the team doesn't grow as fast as they do too, right? Like he helped mature these players as well. He's still a part of what is happening now, in my opinion. Like he didn't get them to that next level, but he's still set in stone a place, if that makes sense, right? Like this is
Like
how
in like a weird kind of degrading way.
like he's like, I mean, if these guys came into the NHL, right, and got like a coach that was kind of newer to the NHL as well, I don't think they grow as fast as they do. Like I'm trying to say this in like an understanding way. Like I know a lot of people do bash him, but he was positives in some aspects.
Yeah, and kind of to wrap up, you're totally right. I'd go back to myself and say, listen, you can cry for 2 days, 3 days about it because it was very justifiably cryable, but the future is bright. And sometimes you have to go through pain to feel happiness, and this is the year where the Leafs have everything. It's not set in stone, but they have the pencil, they have the stone, they just got to write it. And hoping the next time we see their names on paper, it's going to be engraved in the Stanley Cup. I'd like to thank Josh Pulis and Breyden Molnar once again for joining the show. I will be back when the Leafs play again tomorrow night, I believe, against the Montreal Canadiens. Breyden, correct me if I'm wrong.
Yeah, they're playing tomorrow, right?
Tomorrow
Pretty
night.
sure.
Could be the next 3 games will be against Montreal, then the Sens, and the Jets to end the season. That could be a potential playoff matchup. I'd like to see how the Leafs finish off the season series against the Canadiens. For Josh Pulis and Breyden Molnar, I'm Jacob Bussey, and thank you for joining the Bussey Banter.